The Chicago Bulls fall to the New Orleans Pelicans, 143 to 130. We're going to be talking about the key takeaways from tonight's loss. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Mazelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we're talking about the key takeaways from tonight's loss against the New Orleans Pelicans. And so, look, I think that this can be summed up really in one point, and that's that the Bulls gave the Pelicans no resistance today. From the start of the first quarter, the Bulls gave up 37 points. And so the Pelicans coming into this game were only averaging, I believe, 25 points a quarter. And so 37 points to the Pelicans, who had the second worst record in the NBA. That was not a good start here for the Chicago Bulls. By the time it got to halftime, as far as second chance points, the Pelicans had an advantage there, 12-3. And so the effort level was not there for the Chicago Bulls tonight. And it's just a very disappointing loss because the Pelicans were coming in really on a 9-game losing streak. They were 0-5 under their new coach that took over for Coach Green. And so for the Pelicans to come out the way that they did, and just really for the Bulls to play down to the competition the way that they did, was just really disappointing in this game. The Bulls gave up 74 first half points. And so by the end of the first half, it was 74-58. The Pelicans had a 20-point lead in the second quarter. I believe they got up to 22 in that quarter. And so, look, the Bulls were 0-5 from downtown, and so they just weren't hitting three-point shots, and they really relied on the outside shots a lot. There really wasn't any kind of passing and cutting in that quarter as well. And really, I think that you saw that kind of throughout the game. Like, it just really never picked up for the Chicago Bulls. And they struggled with the turnovers. Like, that was another thing that was just terrible here, as the Pelicans really took advantage of the Chicago Bulls as far as the turnovers were concerned. And just some of the individual play here for the Pelicans. I mean, starting with Zion Williamson, like Zion Williamson did not even take any shots outside of the paint tonight. So he was really able to get downhill at will and get to his left hand. And so in 30 minutes, he was 8 of 14 from the field. He was 13 of 16 from the free throw line. He did not take a three-point shot in this game. He had 29 points, and he had a +2 in the plus-minus box score. He had one block, he had 2 steals and 2 assists in this game, along with 1 rebound. And so that was Zion Williamson. And then you had Trey Murphy III. He had 20 points. He was a +20 in the plus-minus box score. They had Sadiq Bey, who had 20 points. You also had Jeremiah Fears, a rookie that came in and had 15 points, and he was a +4 in the plus-minus box score. Eve Missy had 14. Jose Alvarado had 16. I mean, literally, the Pelicans, everybody got off in this game tonight. And so this was just really a disappointing loss again for the Chicago Bulls. And so, going ahead and jumping into the box score, look, I mean, there's just nobody really played well like that. I mean, the only player that probably is going to stand out here for you as far as the plus is concerned is going to be Ayo Dosunmu, but everybody else was in the negatives today. And it was just a tough effort across the board. So, I'm just briefly going to go through and just look at a couple performances today, but there is definitely no MVPs today. And so starting with Ayo Dosunmu. And so for me, Ayo, I think, did a great job as far as really getting downhill in this game. And so you see that he had the 28 points. He was +6 in the plus-minus box score. He did have 2 rebounds. He had an assist, and he was 4 of 5 from the free throw line and 2 of 4 from deep and 11 of 16 from the field. And so Ayo Dosunmu continues to really be efficient like that. Again, he was the only Chicago Bull, other than Jalen Smith, that was in the plus today. And so he was a plus force. Then next, I'll go ahead and jump into Jalen Smith's performance today. And so with Jalen Smith, I think that what I like about his performance is that he continues to find ways to score the basketball. And also, too, for the most part, like I'm liking what I'm seeing with him as far as his activity is concerned. And so 13 points, he was a +3 in the plus minus box score. He did have 2 turnovers, didn't have any blocks today, had 1 assist. He had 6 rebounds. He was 2 of 2 from the free throw line and 3 of 5 from deep and 4 of 6 from the field. And so, again, I said this just really on the last post game that I think that Jalen Smith is really playing his way into, just a player that has to be, in the rotation no matter what. I think that there should not be a situation like it was last season where he essentially was out of the rotation. And so Jalen Smith, again, I think shows up there. And so next, just kind of briefly going through just some of the starters here and some of the notes. And so you see that Kobe White had the 24 points tonight. He was a -1 in the plus minus box score tonight. He did have 5 turnovers there. And so he was tied, with Josh Giddey with the turnovers. And I mean, the turnovers were just really not good for Kobe White today. I thought that he got really like kind of caught in the air, I think, a couple times with some of these turnovers. And so just some bad turnovers there. He did have 6 assists. He had 5 rebounds. He was 7 of 10 from the field, just 3 of 10 from deep and 15 from the field in 35 minutes. And so I think he was just 1 3-pointer shy of getting to 1,000 career for Kobe White tonight. And so he would have had 1,000 career 3-pointers had he made one more. But man, it was just a tough night for him. And as far as Manas Buzelis, look, Manas Buzelis, he started the game and then he did not start the second half here. And he struggled just like a lot of the other Chicago Bulls tonight defensively. I thought that the Pelicans kind of took it to him. He was not the only one that struggled there defensively, but 10 points, a -23. He did have 2 blocks. I did like seeing that from him tonight, continuing to get the blocks. He had 4 rebounds. He was 2 of 5 from deep and 4 of 8 from the field. So, a tough one for him. Patrick Williams did get the start tonight because the Bulls were down several players tonight. And so they did not have Vooch. He was out. They also did not have Kevin Huerter. They didn't have Zach Collins, which we have already talked about that. He's still recovering from the wrist. And they didn't have Isaac Okoro tonight. And so Billy Donovan went with Patrick Williams here. And so Patrick Williams tonight, he knocked down a couple threes. And so he had the 6 points, a -7 in the plus minus box score, 2 assists, 2 of 7 from downtown and 2 of 9 from the field. He struggled defensively. I think initially that's probably what Billy Donovan was looking for as far as just him coming in and maybe, being a little bit more of a defensive answer for the team. And that just really didn't happen in this game. We just talked about Jalen Smith. Julian Phillips, look, he was a -1 in the plus minus box score. I did like his activity, though. He had some good dunks in this one. I love the lob that he caught there from Trey Jones. I also like, another dunk that he had in this game as well. And so continuing to show the athleticism. And so he had 7 points, 2 rebounds. He had an assist. He had a steal. He had a block. He had 1 turnover. He was 3 of 3 from the field and 1 of 1 from downtown tonight in 15 minutes. And so I did like his energy there. Javon Carter, look, he continues to come in and give you buckets. I mean, and at one point, he was really trying to get the Bulls going early on because he started off 3 of 3 from downtown. And he's hitting these corner 3-point shots and everything else, but it just really never kicked in for the Chicago Bulls in this game. And so Javon Carter, got to give him credit. He had 11 points in this one. He had 1 assist. He had 1 rebound. He was 3 of 6 from downtown and 4 of 7 from the field. Trey Jones, look, I like the fact that you saw the assist tonight for him, the 10 points. I thought that he did a good job with some of the crafty finishes there, but most importantly, he got to the free throw line. And so I think that Trey Jones, look, he does a great job as far as drawing contact. And so he was 6 of 9 from the free throw line there, a -10 in the plus minus box score. Again, he did have those 11 assists on 2 of 4 shooting in 28 minutes. And then finally with Josh Giddey, look, Josh Giddey, 21 points in this game, a -13 in the plus minus box score. He did have the 5 turnovers. He struggled as well in that department. Did have 6 assists and 7 rebounds. He was 5 of 6 from the free throw line and 4 of 10 from downtown and 6 of 12 from the field. And so, I just think that with Josh Giddey tonight maybe settled a little bit too much, I think, for the three-point shot tonight, and I think that really was kind of the story of the team too. I think that they just really settled a lot for the three-point shot. In fact, I think at one point in the second quarter, like the Bulls were 5 of 19 from deep in the second quarter. And so they just really kept shooting these three-point shots, and they had zero post presence. Like without Vooch tonight, they had zero post presence, and it absolutely showed in tonight's game. And so, that really, was the box score tonight. Again, this was an ugly loss here. I'll jump into the team box score because I think that really is where it is more telling with what happened to the Chicago Bulls. And so, the first key stat in the team box score is that the Bulls got outscored on the bench here. And so the Pelicans outscored them by 10. I believe it was 51-41. And so that was the first key takeaway here, is that the Bulls got outscored off the bench. And I get that, the lineup did get shuffled here and everything else. And they did actually end up starting Jalen Smith in the second quarter, or not the second quarter, excuse me, the second half. And so I just wanted to note that Billy Donovan did make that adjustment, but the bench got outscored. The next thing really that comes to mind here is that when you look at the three-point percentage for the Chicago Bulls, it ended up evening out here for them as they scored, or they got 40% on 20 of 50 shooting. And so, I think that percentage just makes it seem like it was a lot better than what it really was, because again, the Bulls struggled from there. The free throws 24-30 or 24-32, excuse me, for the Bulls for 75%. And then you see the Pelicans 24 of 35. And so the calls in this game, those were interesting too, even though you see that both teams got to the line pretty much about the same here. The Pelicans a little bit more, 35 attempts to the Bulls 32. And then the rebounds, like that was huge in this game. And so you see the Pelicans 55-33 in the rebounds. And look at the offensive rebounds, 19-4. I mean, they just absolutely crushed the Bulls on the offensive glass tonight. That's what led to all these second chance points, because if they weren't getting like tip ins at the basket, then they were getting these extra kickouts for threes and stuff like that. And so that was tough on the Bulls. And then they got out rebounded defensively 36-29. And so that was really a big story in the game. And then look at the turnovers here. When you look at the steals, 13-4, the Pelicans lead in that category. The block shots, the Pelicans 5-3 there. And then the turnovers 17-14. And so the Bulls gave up 23 points off of those turnovers tonight. And so, the Pelicans did a good job as far as turning the Bulls over. And then the Bulls, just gave up a lot of points off those turnovers. And so the fast breaks 19-17, the Bulls lead in that category. And points in the paint, that also tells the story, as the Pelicans just outpaced the Bulls 78-44 there. And so you see that the Bulls had a lead of 5, but you see that the Pelicans led by as much as 22. There were a couple runs that the Bulls made in this game to, in fact, get it to single digits, but they just never, ever really got things going here. And so, just a tough loss here for the Chicago Bulls. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking about this loss. Again, I think that this was a tough one. I get it that the Bulls were shorthanded, but still, they didn't come out with the right energy. They didn't have just the right effort. That's all you can really say about this. Just a tough loss for this team. And it's a game in which I think that the Bulls still should have been in this game. I get that the Pelicans, have the length and they have the height, with the interior play with Queen and all these guys like that. But still, I think that the Bulls very much could have competed in this game and probably should have got the win, because, again, the Pelicans coming in, they just were not a good basketball team. They were 2-15. And so now they are 3-15. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys' key takeaway is as the Pelicans beat the Chicago Bulls 143-130. And we'll be talking a little bit more about just some of the key takeaways from this game on the next video. But until the next one, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.